Hey, everybody. This is Larry Schaefer with Tercero Wines. I'm also VP of the Board of Directors of the Rhone Rangers. I want to welcome you to our summer whites and rosé Zoom. We're focusing in on wines that are perfect for this time of the year. The great thing about Rhone varieties, we have so many different varieties that can go anywhere from warm weather to cool weather, and it's fun to kind of show them off throughout the year. So in this tasting, and not only that, with Rhone varieties, the beauty of Rhone varieties relative to other groups of varieties, we can grow really warm weather ones, very cool weather ones, and everything in between. So, and they can pretty much be grown anywhere, almost anywhere in the country, not anywhere in the country, but in many different places. So we have some great wines showcasing today, wines from both within California and outside of California. We're going to start with a beautiful Picpoul Blanc from William Chris Winery. So I'm going to go ahead and let Chris get started here. And I've got the wine. And also, everyone should know that when I lead Zooms, I really love if wineries can share wine with each of the other participants. It's a lot of fun when we can all be on together. I like to have other participants ask other participants questions as well, not just be a one-sided conversation. But William, go ahead. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. Let everyone know all about William Chris Winery. We're really excited to have Texas wineries as part of the Rhone Rangers. It's been something that we've hoped for quite some time, and now we're getting a lot of momentum, and we're really, really excited about it. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
You are good.
Awesome. Well, my name's Chris. It's not William. William Chris is two different people. William Blackman, and who's one of my dearest friends in life, and myself, Chris Brundrett, co-founded the brand in 2008 with 40 grand in American Express. And I'm really lucky to have my amazing business partner who's been farming in Texas grapes since 1983, which is the year I was born. I got to get one of those glasses, Larry. Thank you. So yeah, we started out with 40 grand American Express in 2008. Started with a couple hundred cases and have grown the brand. We farm about 300 acres today and have 138 families in our company and grow grapes and farm grapes across the state of Texas. While Texas is not California, thank God, but we have a huge state, and you can fit the whole country of France inside the state of Texas, which is kind of crazy. This Picpoul, and we grow quite a bit of Picpoul and make quite a bit of Picpoul. This is from one of my absolute favorite spots at Alta Loma Vineyards. So if for all of you fans out there, you were all born with a Texas map on your hand. So if you can see this, the high plains of Texas is right about your index finger knuckle, which is really cool. And what's amazing about the high plains AVA, it is some of the highest elevation wine growing in the world. This vineyard's actually about 30. Actually, I think I pegged it the other day. It was like 3,670 feet above sea level. So what's really remarkable about the Texas High Plains is that it is literally the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and which is kind of unique because if you've ever been to Lubbock, Texas, or in the High Plains, there's a great joke that you could literally watch your dog run away for a week. Because it's incredibly flat. But what's crazy is it's been elevated, it's ancient seabed, and it's totally flat until the base of the Rocky Mountains, which is really remarkable and interesting in my opinion. We've been having lots of warm 90-degree days out there right now, but it also cools down to in the 50s at night. So it really makes a incredible, not only incredibly fantastic red growing region, but we also grow quite a bit of white wine there as well. We grow Roussanne, Marsanne, Picpoul Blanc, a little bit of Giallo, lots of different varieties out there. But Picpoul has been one of my favorites. And I don't want to bore everybody. I think my other partner Andrew Sides at Lost Straw. They've been making amazing Picpoul for quite some time, and I was frankly a little jealous. And I started making Picpoul about 4 vintages ago. And the first vintage, we used oak, we used concrete eggs, we used concrete cubes, we used stainless, and we like really zhuzhed the wine, if that makes sense, and like threaded it all back together and really made this like really incredibly complex Picpoul. And I had this like moment in the next summer before the next vintage where I had 2 bottles of our Picpoul and then 6 bottles of one of our other brands, Lost Straw, who I don't make the wine for, and I literally drank 4 out of 6 of the Lost Straw bottles and just 1 of our bottles. And I kept on thinking that, why is this? Because it's hot. I want to drink something gorgeous and just simple and delicious. And I kept on reaching for the Lost Straw bottle. And I, was visiting with the winemaking team there, and I was like, guys, what is so delicious about this? And they said, we don't mess with it. We press the fruit, we ferment it in stainless, we ferment it over lees, and it's delicious and crushable every single time. And here I'm doing all these things, pulling out all the stops, trying to really make this wine incredibly complex. And I think at the end of the day, that for all the fans out there, like, Picpoul doesn't need 5 different aging mediums to ferment and age on. And so we've really drawn it back. We use 2 different yeasts. We use 100% stainless, and we're left with this banger, crisp white wine. And I think especially, at least in Texas, we always say that we can take breakfast, lunch, or dinner and wrap it up in a tortilla, because we are a tortilla-friendly state. And this wine is like, I was literally just drinking it with a barrel rep on the back porch. I'm going to have it with dinner tonight. It is one of my absolute favorite white wines that we produce, and we produce quite a few. I do know too that I just had these thrown up on the website too. So for any of the fans out there that want to go to williamchriswines.com, you can snag a 6-pack and get free shipping on all this wine. Of course, you can go through the portfolio as well. But Larry, did I miss anything? Do you want more? Do you want less?
Hey, first of all, Chris, I apologize for calling you William. My bad.
Not the first time.
I won't make that mistake again. And 2, the glasses. It's funny. There's a great restaurant near us that they only have tumblers. They don't have wine glasses, and it's not something I normally drink out of. But I'll tell you what, this wine I'm sure would be perfect out of pretty much everything, including a red Solo cup. It's awesome, and I think your point about making the wine what it is I think really imperative. I think Picpoul, for people that are unfamiliar with Picpoul, its loose translation from French is lip stinger, and the idea is that Picpoul really should be crisp and clean and kind of your oysters and mussels wine. I think there are winemakers that try to make it in a richer style. They put oak on it, they put other things on it, and it creates an interesting wine. The question is whether it's kind of typical of the variety. And I think what you were talking about the first time, you're trying to make kind of a really complex wine. And I'm sure it was beautiful, but it probably didn't remind you, after you had the Lost Straw ones, of kind of what the variety brings to the table naturally, rather than kind of winemakering it up, so to speak.
It was like when I was 100%, it was like when I get home and I'm thinking about, oh man, Picpoul I'm thirsty. I want to have a wine while I cook dinner. What am I going to drink? And I'm like, Picpoul, right? And then I go to reach for a Picpoul and I'm like, oh, do I want the super complex, like 5 different, aging? No, I just want delicious, crushable Picpoul. And we actually intentionally picked this a little on the young side. We pick it for acidity. We want it to be fresh. We want it to be aromatic. Picpoul gets really nice when it's like really ripe. However, I just totally lean back to my history and like want this acidic. I want this crisp. I want this delicious. And I tell you what, with salty cheese as well, like this wine is spot on. Also, I mean, like I'm not embarrassed to say this, Larry. We eat a lot of chips and salsa and chips and guac, and this wine with chips and salsa and chips and guac and like to start your evening off is absolutely phenomenal. And I've got some fresh made guac, and I'm actually about to make peach salsa for the Peach Jamboree this weekend in Stonewall, Texas, which I'm a 4-time winner at. I'm about to make a big batch of peach salsa and enter it in the little fair here. So
no, everything you've told everything great. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if any of the other panelists do, but I have a couple of questions. Number one, do you know how much Picpoul is planted in Texas at this point? The reason I ask is I've tried,
it's a
you know,
ton. It's about 20
if you're
acres.
in California, you know everything because we submit all of our data to the state. And so you know how many acres are planted, you know how many tons are produced. That's not the same in Texas. There's no way to get accurate Texas data because it's self-reporting. So I've been trying to get some information, but my feeling is that there's probably a lot more Picpoul than what I've been able to find.
Yeah, I think total, and this is anecdotal, but I think there's less than 30 acres. I think it's 25 acres. We have about No, I mean, we have 20 acres, so I think there's about 10 other acres, so that puts us about 30. I mean, there's about a little over 10,000 acres planted in all of Texas, and so you know, and in the tablet, I was just at Tablas Creek a couple months ago at the last Rhone Rangers event, and those guys were super stoked that we have planted their Tablas Creek variety of Picpoul, which is pretty awesome, and we sent them some bottles too. I think. It grows so incredibly well. Obviously, we're in a warm climate, so retaining acidity is key. And I think that Picpoul, I would not have said this 5 years ago, but Picpoul is making a name in Texas. Like, so many folks walk up and go, "Hey, do you have any Picpoul?" Like, that is a real thing. And I think 5 years, especially on a grocery store shelf or a retail shelf, it was really, really hard to start breaking that. But now, you know, what's cool is Texas fans, which, you know, we're one of the top wine consuming states in the country, you know, are now like, "Hey, I tried the Tablas Creek. I tried some other Picpoul from across the country." And I don't know how much is in California, but I wouldn't imagine that much. And we do self-report everything. However, there's huge strides being taken in Texas right now to do mandatory reporting, which I'm really excited about. And I'm also the tip of the spear on as well. So.
That is awesome. And you know, one of the things I'm really excited about with the Texas wineries joining the Rhone Rangers is just the increased awareness across the country that these Rhone varieties can get. So when you see the name, it's not going to be that surprising because there's going to be greater awareness of it. So there was one question, and I know Jeff answered it. Thank you, Jeff, about Picpoul. Is Picpoul blended with other whites? And traditionally, Picpoul is blended. If you're in Chateauneuf and the Rhone, Picpoul is generally not bottled on its own. It almost always is blended, and the reason being that acid really helps to balance the richness that other Rhone varieties bring to the table. So yeah, and I'm sure you use it for a blend as well, right, Chris?
We actually do just very slightly, and I think if you look at the Rhone as well, and I was just there 2 weeks ago, and you know, it's not 50% of a blend. It's generally like 2%, 5%, 3%. It's very little, and I was blown away by the wine quality out there. It's just really, really phenomenal, and I think you'll continue to see more and more Picpoul blended in our Rhone blends, which are predominantly Roussanne Marsanne blends. But we're definitely starting to feather in a little Picpoul here and there, because exactly why you just said, Larry, is like that little pop, that little freshness. You know, I think it's really easy to make this, like, you know, kind of big burly Roussanne with a you know, a 5-10% Marsanne, but that Picpoul just like brightens it up. We typically will keep some stainless drums of Picpoul because it's typically bottled ahead of the Roussanne Marsanne that we have a little bit more of an oak program on, and then we'll thread that back in. But I think in Texas you're seeing so much more versatility than you ever have, in that the winemakers, including us, like, we are threading and building complexity across the breadth of our wines, and, you know, especially with our vintage variation, I think it's really important to be really flexible in our winemaking program to where we can use that complexity to help build consistency, if that makes sense, into our wine programs. And the more vintages we get under our belt, I've been making wine for almost 20 years, and just that history and that it can help build consistency and help build quality.
Exactly. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. Beautiful, beautiful wine. I can't wait for more people to try this wine for sure.
Well, I'm honored to be here, and we are stoked. We've been telling all our neighbors about Rhone Rangers, and I think I'm going to see you guys out in Sonoma no, it's like in a week or two, right? Yeah. So
you'll see many of us here, and then the hope is that we're still kind of planning, but the hope is to get out to Texas next year. So that's the goal.
Let me know. Don't get stuck in traffic, Larry. Come on out to Texas. We're ready.
I could probably fly there much faster than I can drive through LA. So yeah, we'll make it happen.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, next up is Josh Bendick. Josh is not an unknown name to those of you who have been followers of the Rhone Rangers. Josh was the president of the Rhone Rangers when I was on beginning of my board service quite some time ago. So Josh, thank you. Welcome back. Appreciate you being here. We talked about Picpoul being a part of a blend, and here we go. Josh, if you don't mind giving a little background on Holly Hill. Oh, and one more thing, William. I'm sorry, Chris. What's the price point on your Picpoul?
Shit, I knew you were going to ask me that. I think it's maybe $28, $30.
Okay. Thanks. I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, you can find it on the website, and it's actually we made about 800 cases of it, and there's only about 50 left. We just released it, and it sold really, really well.
Sorry about that, Josh. While I was looking at the name of the wine, I'm like, oh, I got to remember to ask that. So I do apologize. But Josh, go ahead and let us know kind of the background of Holly's Hill, your background, kind of why Rhone varieties, and then we'll get into the individual wine.
Sounds good. Good to see you, Larry. So I'm in business with my in-laws and my wife. My wife and I make the wine. And we actually started out by planting just Rhone varieties. So back in '98, we started planting. We have 25 acres planted total. And the reason we chose Rhone varieties is because of my in-laws. They shared a bottle of Chateauneuf de Pape on their honeymoon a long time ago. And so when it came time to plant a vineyard, it was a natural choice to go with Rhone varieties. So what I brought to you today is our Patriarche Blanc. It's a white Rhone blend, and it's inspired by the Chateauneuf de Pape Blanc wines. So over 20 years ago, my wife and I were in the Rhone Valley, and we had an opportunity to taste at Clos de Pape with the late Paul Avril, and he pulled out a 10-year-old bottle of his Chateauneuf de Pape Blanc, and man, I fell in love with that wine. It was still real fresh and delightful. So when we put our first white blend together every year, it's this wine, and we have Chateauneuf de Pape in mind when we do that blend. This one is it's a good segue because there's some Picpoul in this wine as well, but this is a Viognier dominant blend with Picpoul, Roussanne, and then Grenache Blanc making up the smallest percentage. This wine's usually Roussanne dominant, but we had a nasty frost back in 22, which we actually lost vines and cordons, so we're still trying to nurse that block back to health. So our Roussanne is kind of sad right now. So this vintage was Viognier dominant, but it's a really nice wine that is fermented in neutral French oak barrels. We block the malolactic fermentation to maintain that crisp acidity, and this wine has like tangerine, leeky, lemon, lime, coriander, and then in the background there's like some honey and floral aromatics. And I chose this wine because if I was invited to a summer barbecue, this is the one I would bring for sure.
Well, it has great texture, great complexity. You can tell the Viognier on the nose. Viognier it never really hides. It kind of lets itself be known for sure.
Right, and then you can taste that Picpoul too coming through with that bright acidity. And we purposely bottle the wine with a little bit of effervescence that keeps the wine real lively in the mouth, and it makes it a really food-friendly wine. It's actually kind of a crowd pleaser because it goes well with food and also goes well on its own.
And did you say all of these are fermented in oak, or all these fermented in stainless, or kind of a combination? And I'm assuming you ferment them separately in a blend right before bottling?
Yeah, they're fermented separate. For the most part, for this wine, the wines are all barrel aged in French oak barrels, neutral barrels. We do some stainless steel with some whites also, but we like the richness and the texture that we get with the barrel fermentation for this wine. But again, they're neutral barrels, so we're not getting any oak flavor at all.
And then the CO2, are you bubbling that in right before bottling, or you're just kind of trying to retain what you're given?
We do, yeah. So pretty much all wineries cold stabilize their wines before bottling, which means you chill the wine below freezing, and then you can inject a little CO2, and the wine captures some of that effervescence that way.
Yeah, a little trick of the trade for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a flabby kind of flat white wine.
No, and for consumers, what that CO2 does is it not only gives it a touch of effervescence, it kind of it pushes up the acidity, the perceived acidity a little bit. So it's not uncommon to find CO2 bubbled into Rieslings and Gewürztraminer that have a little RS, because that'll help balance that out quite a bit right before bottling.
Right.
And
So
what's your age? What do you expect in terms of age worthiness on this wine?
I always tell people to drink this wine the year we bottle it, because next year we'll make another one.
Do you have older versions of this wine?
Yeah, I'm just, being a winemaker, I'm used to tasting real fresh young wines, and so that's what I prefer. But yeah, you can lay this down, especially the Roussanne dominant varieties. Roussanne can hang on to for some time for sure. And then, the wines, we're pretty high elevation here. We're near 3,000 feet in the Sierra foothills of the we're not the Rockies, but the Sierra Nevada mountains. And so with those cold nights, we really retain the acidity, which helps it be a wine, that you can lay down for some time.
And as you were saying, the blend is going to be different every year depending upon what you're given, but you're focusing to try to get a Roussanne dominant. The Viognier would not necessarily be dominant normally.
Not usually Viognier dominant. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, there's a little bit more of the sweet aromatics with this wine than it typically gets. Usually this wine has kind of like this orange creamsicle quality in the background that we really like.
No, it's beautiful. I will be putting a cork in this and enjoying it over the next couple of days, because my guess is it's going to continue to evolve over the next couple of days.
For sure. So think like grilled shrimp, lots of seafood type things, and with that bright acidity, it cuts through rich dishes like Wiener Schnitzel. Even we just got back from the Danube, so I have those rich Austrian dishes on my mind. But also like Basque sheep milk cheese, like Osso Radi. This goes really great with that.
That's awesome. Well, I will say, I tell people a kind of a go-to for me with any wine, red, white, rosé, is going to be salty cheeses. I don't think you can go wrong with an aged Gouda, an aged Parmesan, even a Gorgonzola, because I think that saltiness really balances with so many wines, but especially wines like this, for sure.
For sure. Don't they even say to like sell wine with cheese or something like that? Isn't it? I don't know.
I've never
tasting room trick.
I've never figured out who they are. So once I figure out who they are, I'll be able to answer that question. But
okay.
But listen, thank you very much, Josh, for being on. And it's great to see this here at Foothills represented as well. Again, our goal with the Rhone Rangers is really to educate people that Rhones are not only grown in one specific area, they're grown throughout California and throughout the country. And so, like I said, it's great to have you on board. Great to educate people about what's going on up there. And we'll continue to send people your way to explore that region for Rhone varieties for sure.
Thanks, Larry.
You are welcome. Well, Jeff, I figured I would leave you as much time as possible. I know you and Casey, I'm kind of scared just knowing how much both of you like to talk a little bit, but that's not a bad thing. But Jeff Morgan is up next with Covenant. I met Jeff, actually, I just met Jeff in February, I believe, at the Rhone Ranger tasting in Paso Robles, and had a nice conversation with him there. Really enjoyed, he took part in the seminar there, and I really enjoyed his input, his information. And so I'm excited to have him on board to talk about his rosé, which is something he specializes in. So you are up, my friend.
Well, thanks, Larry. And it's great to be on this panel. I really enjoyed both these white wines. The Picpoul from Chris's winery is just like super bright and fresh and wowy. And then Josh's, has that brightness, but a little bit of more richness, as he described. I love these both. I'm going to finish them tonight, hopefully with my wife. This wine, my own, I know what this tastes like. I'm done drinking this, okay, at least for today. However, it's partially filled because I had 12 people for lunch from a restaurant group, and this was left over, so I opened it. But rosé, okay. So Covenant's been around for 20 years, but I've been around for 70. And for the last 35, I've been in the wine business. And I lived in Provence actually for 5 years, which is where I got into rosé. I was there from age 19 to 24, just drinking and eating and playing music, which is what I did for a living back then. And when I started making wine, we had some Merlot. I was in New York, and we had some Merlot that we couldn't get ripe, so we bled the Merlot and put it in a barrel and forgot about it for a few months, and came back and we had this terrific rosé that reminded me of those wonderful Provençal rosés that I used to drink all the time. So fast forward, I moved to Napa in 2000, and I didn't have any money. I was working for Dean and DeLuca as their wine director, but I wanted to make my own rosé, and it was before the rosé craze, and so people were just throwing out their bleed. And for those of you who don't know what bleed is, it's when you bring in your red grapes, and if you want to increase the concentration of skin to juice, or the ratio of skin to juice, you bleed out some of the juice right away before it takes on color and it's pink, and then you can ferment that pink juice and you can make a rosé. So I just go around all my friends' wineries and pick up a barrel or two of bleed, and voila, I had free bleed and nobody wanted it. And I started a winery called Solo Rosa. We only made rosé. It was one of my dumbest ideas. But it got everybody, including myself, interested in rosé even more. And I would make rosé out of any varietal I could get, that as long as it wasn't too red. And we started the Rosé Avengers and Producers, and I wrote a book about rosé, and eventually I was overwhelmed by the popularity of rosé, and I went out of business. That's how successful we were. And so with Covenant, which is what I founded back in 2003, we focused on Cabernet, but I didn't start making rosé till about 10 years later. I was kind of licking my wounds from the Solo Rosa days, and I started making rosé from Grenache, and this particular rosé is a single vineyard Grenache. It comes from the Mettler family vineyard in Lodi, which is not Napa, not Sonoma, but a little bit to the east of Napa. A lot of great grapes are grown there, and I just I love Grenache when it's red, but to be honest with you all, I've never made a good red Grenache. You just can't seem to get it to. They're these big clusters. They don't ripen easily or evenly, and it's been problematic. But if you pick early, which is what you want to do for rosé, so you can get that freshness, I think that both Josh and Chris were talking about, you don't have to worry about getting it so ripe. And so what we're drinking here, my Red Sea, it's actually Covenant. It's called Covenant Red Sea. You can see a backwards C there, Covenant Red Sea Grenache Rosé. So we pick it around 20 bricks, which is low in sugar, high in acid. I whole cluster press. I don't do that bleeding thing anymore. And but I still ferment in barrels, just like Josh does to a certain degree. Neutral oak, old barrels. Native yeast. All my wines are native yeast. Why? Well, it's cheaper for one than buying yeast, and and I don't know, it seems to work, so why not? But maybe gives us a little more complexity. But I'm really looking not necessarily for complexity, but for brightness, freshness. And that's what I'm hoping to get in any rosé I make, particularly this Grenache. What else can I say? I mean, it's the kind of wine rosé, not just mine, but rosé is the kind of wine you can enjoy with just about anything, from your salad to your fish to your steak to your burgers to your hot dogs, whatever you're having. Rosé is very versatile wine, and I love Rhone varietals. I make Syrah, I make a Roussanne, I make a Viognier, but I am kind of partial to this Grenache rosé, which does indeed go with just about anything on the dinner table.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing. So you are whole cluster pressing. You're just going directly into the press and going from there, no skin contact whatsoever?
Well, I mean, you do get some skin contact when you dump the whole clusters into your press, and then you press. So there's not a lot. If you were doing the same thing with Syrah, which has a lot more color in its skins, it'll come out much darker. But with Grenache, and especially when you pick it, young like this, I mean, not particularly ripe, it comes out well. You can see it's like here. I mean, in my glass, it's very light.
Yeah.
I used to make rosés that actually were pink. In French, rosé means pink. And I used to think, gee, it should be pink. But then the French, they started like saying, well, no, monsieur, it has to be more almost white. We don't want it pink. And I thought, and then the Americans jumped on that bandwagon. And so, yeah, you don't want your rosé to be red, but I think the French have gone a little too far. A lot of times the French rosés still taste good, but they're white. So what's the difference between a white rosé and a pink rosé? I suppose it's shades of pink, but this is about as light as I want it to be, and that's what comes out.
Well, like I said, it's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think Casey might have something to say about Grenache as a red variety. I think all of us might, because I think all of us probably make a straight Grenache as well, which I love on its own, but I certainly love in rosé as well. I think it's a very versatile variety. It's a variety that there are obviously different clones, that some produce larger berries, larger clusters, some produce smaller berries, smaller clusters. So depending upon site and clone, you can get very, very, very different wines out of it for sure. And I was asking about the skin contact, just wondering if you foot stomped it and left it on the skins for a little bit before pressing or anything like that. Or some people will go ahead and crush it and then go ahead and press it after crushing it. And so, there's no one way of doing it. That's why I was just trying to ask further questions.
Well, it seems to work. I'm making it for the French who don't drink it, but I make it for the French. So it's very light and it just comes out that way. But Casey, when we get to you, which will be soon, I hope, I noticed, I saw you over the North Coast, or at least I saw Grenachista. Grenachista, is that what you have? Are you Grenachista also?
Yes, the Grenachista, yeah.
So I saw the Grenachista sign up at the North Coast Wine Festival last Saturday, where we were also pouring not rosé, but some of our other wines. And I was thinking, wow, like that kind of like limits you if you want to make anything outside of Grenache. So I'm interested in hearing about that name and what you're doing there.
But before we get to that, there was one question about did you push a touch of CO2 on the rosé? Did you add any CO2 to increase that that pop a little bit?
Usually we try to get rid of the CO2 because we bottle it so early. So I've never actually done that with my rosé. No, it just if it has too much CO2, I mean, usually, we bottle early. I mean, I think there's no ML in this, so I was able to bottle this probably in December or January, and there's still plenty of residual CO2. I don't remember what level it was, but it's natural.
Jeff, that was my question. I was just asking because there's like just a little touch of it, and I really, really appreciate it. But I was curious if you pushed it or just didn't sparge it all the way. And either way, it's delicious. I love it, and
Thank you,
I
Chris.
want to drink more.
Like most of the things I do, it's completely unintentional. I just get lucky.
And I would say it's rare to have a higher level of dissolved CO2 naturally in oak versus in stainless steel, right? If you ferment and age in stainless steel, naturally bound to have more of that dissolved CO2, regardless of whether you want to or not, versus
Well,
oak.
that would depend again on how soon you get it out of the barrel. So yes, if it stays in barrel for, 8 to 10, 12 months, absolutely. But if you're in barrel for like, 3 months, there's plenty of CO2 left.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. Well, like I said, it is beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing. Are you going to be in Sonoma in a week and a half?
No, because I had to do, like Sonoma last Saturday. And I have a concert at my winery that I'm playing at the next day, and I got rehearsals the day before. So we'll be there. So my managing director, Sagi, and my hospitality director, Ted, they'll both be there pouring for us in Sonoma. And I hope that anybody who is there will come and visit the Covenant table.
I will definitely stop by and try some more of the rosé. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then Casey did mention, we'll get into Casey, but Casey did mention, yes, if you have a cold cellar, you're going to hold on to that CO2 longer as well. So depending upon the ambient temperature in your cellar in the winter, if you're in a cooler area, you are going to hold on to that CO2. So very well put.
I would like to say, I need to have something good to say about California, because despite Chris's opening line about, it was kind of disparaging about California. And by the way, Chris, I really like your wines, though. In fact, we've shared wines. We've sent wines back and forth to each other in the past. I like his wines so much. But, and so Texas, yes, obviously can produce terrific wine. But now I forgot where I was going, which is really funny.
You were going to talk up California, but that's okay.
It's okay. It'll come to me, and then I'll interrupt you, Casey. But no, it was about the cellar temperatures. So we don't even have AC in my cellar here in Berkeley because it doesn't get hot. It's like 95 in Napa, and it's like 70 degrees here. So we're kind of blessed in parts of California with really naturally cool cellars. I don't know if does that make us natural wine, Larry? Because we have no AC.
We're not going to dip our toe into that conversation right now. So we don't go there.
I can't comprehend what that would be like, by the way.
But we'll leave that. We'll leave
it doesn't
that
comprehend.
All right. Well, Casey, I wanted to give you enough time because of your large personality to talk about yourself, talk about the brand. I met Casey a couple years ago. If any of you who do not follow Casey on social media, you need to. He has probably the best memes and the best social media that I've experienced in terms of him being a part of so many scenes in history. It's crazy how I didn't realize Grenache was available in Rome at 2000 BC, but apparently it was according to your social media. So, by the way, so we are having actually a Grenache Pet Nat. Just to kind of show the versatility of Rhone varieties. So Casey has a label called their Grenachista. Casey concentrates on all things Grenache, everything Grenache. I think you have Grenache underwear, I hear?
I do, and going back to social media, I'm kind of like the Forrest Gump of wine.
But anyway, so when we were going through the panel trying to figure out what wines to feature, I just figured this would be such a fun wine because it's something that most people are not familiar with. It's a technique that I really want to hear Casey talk more about. But Casey, go ahead and kind of give people a background on you, on the brand, on why you're focusing in on Grenache and what excites you about Grenache.
Oh yeah, I'm Casey Graybehl. I'm the owner and founder and winemaker of the Grenachista. I started this little project in 2013. And to Jeff's comment, in my life, I really need guardrails. So I set up Grenache, one varietal as being, well, 3 varietals as being my guardrails. I make plenty of other wines in my other, day jobs and et cetera. But for this project, I really wanted to focus on Grenache because how versatile it really is. And I fell in love with Grenache when I was going to Cal Poly way back in the early 2000s. And I was at a little barrel tasting, and I don't know, we all have that aha moment, or some of us don't, but mine was like Grenache just trumps Pinot every day. And I was a Pinot lover. And when I first tasted that, I'm like, someday I'm going to make a label and concentrate only on like single vineyard Grenaches, just like they do Pinots, and clonal selections and sites, and really concentrate on that. And I was able to do that in 2013 when we started this, and started with just one vineyard. And now, talking about guardrails, I have like 14 different SKUs, all either Grenache Blanc, or this year we're bringing on some Grenache Brie finally. So yeah, I make way more of wines than just this, but this has kind of always been my baby. We started making Pet Nats in 2018 with the Grenache Blanc Pet Nat. In 2019, we added the Grenache Noir. So I still make both of those in small quantities. And it's just, honestly, I don't make a whole lot of it. If nobody bought it, I'd be all right. Me and my wife would knock it all out. But it's been one of those wines that everybody just loves. And so I've kind of got it dialed in. Anybody that is a winemaker out there knows that Pet Nats are not the easiest thing in the world to make. But now I got this little thing, and it's locked in, and we make one every year, or make this every year. And this year is just one of the better ones. It's kick-ass. And to Jeff's comment, we were at the North Coast Wine event last weekend, and this Pet Nat won Best of Class for sparkling, and it almost won Best of Show for sparkling. But the judges came up to us, we're talking, and they got a little political. They decided that they could not give Best of Show in the sparkling class in the North Bay to a Pet Nat. So it ended up going to Scharfenberger's Method Champenois, which, you spend 7 years making a wine, and then me comes through and it's like, that's 3 months old.
So, hey, Casey, can you explain Pet Nat for those people that are not familiar with the concept of what it is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one, I get this from a vineyard that my friend Dave Mounts farms up in Dry Creek Valley. Pet Nats are pretty sensitive to when they're picked, and I just can't spend, I'm just too busy during harvest to really watch it. So I buy this fruit. My friend Dave watches it like a hawk, and as soon as it's ready, he calls me and says, we're picking it tomorrow. So typically it comes in about 21 and a half. That's about what I want it at. Let me back up a little bit. Petulant Natural is when you take a wine and you bottle it while there's still sugar in it, with a crown cap. So it's fermenting in bottle, that last little hump to get to dry. In doing that, there's nowhere for the CO2, which is the byproduct of fermentation, to go. So it goes into solution, hence the bubbles. So a Method Champenois, you would make a still wine. You'd have up to a year to mess around with it, get it right where you want it. Then it's filtered. It's put in a bottle with a dosage, which is a sugar liqueur, sugar solution. So it's all dialed in. Every move is precision. Pet Nat, it's like, all right, here we go. All right, bottle it. There you go. And so you have all of about a month to ferment in the cellar, put it in a bottle, and then that's what you get. So it is a very seat of your pants type fermentation. But in doing so, you get bubbles. If anybody's out there in the market and have bought Pet Nats, they can be all over the place. They can be, a little flat. They can be explosive. They can be sweet. They can be dry. But as I mentioned before, I think that we've kind of got this dialed in now. So I feel that, like most of our wines, it's pretty consistent year in, year out.
Now, and you're not disgorging at any point. You're going ahead and fermenting it, or then do you disgorge it and then, explain the process, or you don't disgorge at all?
We have disgorged in the past. It's really based on solids and not on anything else. I would prefer not to disgorge because it is a lot of work. So this year was not disgorged. However, it's a case-by-case basis.
And there was, it was, when I opened the box, there was definitely sediment in there. which is not a bad thing. It just kind of is, because that's the natural process of it. Some people are looking for something really clean and clear. As you can see, this is not absolutely clear, and that's fine. There's sediment in there. It's a beautiful, beautiful wine. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, the whole idea of all of these wines they're summertime wines. They're wines that you want to open up at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, in all honesty, because they're bright, they're refreshing, they're really, really fun wines. And this is certainly one of them.
Hey Casey, do you use any of the yeast that reduces solids? Have you messed around with that, or is this all natural yeast or native yeast?
I have played with that with some sparkling that we make for another project. However, with this, I naturally ferment it. I allow it to start all by itself. I let it drop to about 14 bricks, and I kick in a little bit of champagne yeast, and that gives it a week or so to build that population up. So when it goes into bottle, it has a really strong yeast to finish that out, and that's a learning curve. I found that the natural yeast sometimes is not a good enough fermenter. Once you get pressure in that bottle, it's a very difficult ferment.
I hear that one. We've experimented with we do a lot of Saigney for our Pet Nat, and we've experimented with icing a couple of 550s to have that as like almost the finishing wine, as that little bit of sweetness at the end. So icing a 550 to blend back in with our Pet Nat blend, and it's been really interesting. Of course, that is a total dice roll, like wanting to kick it off and hitting a perfect time and try to bottle 1,000 or 2,000 cases of Pet Nat is scary as all get out. One last question. Is this wax?
Yes, it's beeswax.
Oh, that's so cool. What was what's the story behind that?
The first year we made it in 2018, it was all of about 20 cases. And so, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of cool. It looked like a foil. And it was easy to do because it was it was me and my wife knocked it out in a couple hours. And so I just kept with it. If I was smarter, I wouldn't do it anymore, because now it takes me like 3 weeks. But it's just because it's a labor of love. And I just keep doing the same thing. I'm a creature of habit, so
yeah. So what we're talking about is on the bottle itself, there's a little bit of beeswax that is actually covering the cap as well as part of the bottle. So it's not regular wax, it's actually beeswax. It looks pretty cool. I was wondering about that as well. I thought it was a mistake first, but I'm sure it wasn't a mistake. But that was my first thought was, oh, did the wine actually leak? And I knew it didn't. So so there were a couple of questions. So Chris, do you know how much Grenache is grown in Texas?
Oof. I would imagine maybe 300, 400 acres. I don't have a good list. You can cite winegrapes.tamu.edu. That's the Texas A&M website, winegrapes.tamu.edu. And it has a pretty good varietal breakdown of the 10,000-ish acres. As far as Grenache offhand, I don't know. I know we have quite a bit.
I've been reaching out to them because I've been trying to get information. They're working on I think the last one they have active is 2022. So they're working on 2023 at this point. My guess is of the red Rhone varieties, I see more Mourvedre than I do any other red Rhone variety. Do you think that's the most widely planted?
As the last time I checked, we're like William Chris, our company is the second largest producer of Mourvedre in the country. We have about 9 different single vineyard Mourvedres. I mean, that's our specialty. That's what we've been doing for a long, long time. Mourvedre, I think, is probably more widely planted than Grenache for sure. But that is I think it's more than speculative. I could definitely say that there's more Mourvedre than Grenache, but there is quite a bit of Grenache. And I think to Casey's comment earlier, I just had a bottle of Chateau Reyes the other day at a tasting, and it just like blew my mind. And I'm the Mourvedre mogul, and I'm kind of shifting my sights like Mourvedre, but also I think Grenache has a really bright future in the U.S. and as far as like a worldwide variety, a fighting variety, I think that there's a huge opportunity for Grenache in the world, and especially in the U.S.
Chris, what vintage of Rayas did you have?
Say that again.
What
vintage?
vintage of Rayas did you have?
It was the well, it was the most recent release, which was like 12 or 13, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think they released like 10 years late, 10 years arrear, and I wept at the end. It was beautiful and it was amazing.
I think the beauty of varieties like, and I know we're talking about, you know, summertime wines here, but the beauty of varieties
Yeah,
like
sorry to take it on a
no. But the beauty of both Grenache and Mourvedre are they are such chameleons of varieties that can produce light ethereal wines. They can produce really rich wines and kind of everything in between. I will go back to Casey's comment about Grenache. I will say the one common thread I find between Grenache and Pinot is they're both incredibly transparent, and not in terms of color per se, but in terms of how they show themselves. They show everything about site, everything about vintage, everything about clone, and everything about winemaker intent. So if a Grenache gets a lot of oak on it when it really shouldn't get a lot of oak on it, it shows it. And this and Pinot is exactly the same way. So that's why I love working with both of those varieties for the same reason. But the end result's going to be very different because the varieties are going to produce something very different.
Larry, I'll push that a little further and say that I feel like, and I don't have very much experience with Pinot, but I feel like Grenache may be a little bit more exposed than even Pinot, and that I feel like the varietal expression is so much wider than Pinot versus Grenache. I think I want to dive deep into Grenache now after tasting that wine because I haven't stopped waking up thinking about it.
The only
I
thing,
find that.
well, the only thing I will say is that with Grenache, with Pinot, you can have a beautiful 12% alcohol Pinot from a cool climate site and a beautiful 16% Pinot from a warm climate site, and they're both interesting wines. I've yet to have an interesting 12% Grenache that reminded me of Grenache. Not a Pet Nat. I'm talking about, and Casey, you might come in and say something different, but Pinot and Grenache to me is kind of like Zinfandel. It needs enough ripeness to show its kind of its personality, whereas I think Pinot you can has a broader perspective. But Jeff, you're going to say something.
I am. So just a few years ago,
And you have about a minute. Sorry.
during the summertime, it's short. During the summertime in south of France, I enjoyed a lunch with a bottle of 1953 Rayas. And yes, 53, that's my birth year. So it's the same age as me. And it was great. And it was summertime. So I just want to say, if you find any bottles of 53 Rayas, red wine is perfect. You can enjoy it during the summer.
But we need to share them with you, is what you're saying. So
That would be nice too, yeah.
one other comment. Casey, I need that shirt and I need to find out where you got it. So please hit me up offline because I love Counoise. It's one of my favorite varieties to work with. So I appreciate the shirt. So
Screw the shirt, I want the hat.
well, there we go. There's that too. Well, listen, we are coming to the end. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank everyone who joined us on the Zoom. You panelists were awesome, and I appreciate the kind of interaction that you brought. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you in Sonoma. I will say that we have International Grenache Day we're celebrating. We're not celebrating International Mourvedre Day yet, but Chris, we're going to get you involved with that next year, and we'll have a national tasting on that day for darn sure. But we have more events coming up. We'll have another Zoom focusing on Grenache in September, and then we'll have another Zoom focusing on kind of heavy reds and whites leading into the winter. But thank everyone for joining us. I appreciate you guys being here, and I apologize for being late once again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It was awesome.
Cheers.